Firstly, I just want to welcome all our distinguished guests, all our partners and stakeholders who have been continuing in their support of our project. And I also know there are a few new people here who are potential partners on this project and future projects in dual higher education. I want to implore you to use today as an opportunity to interact with the presenters who will be in front today, but with each other as well. We really want to make this an interactive sort of discussion platform. It's not a formal conference in the sense that you just sit and listen to the presenters. We want your feedback and inputs today, which is quite important for all our partners to take this into account today. So I just want to make you aware of the links on the program that we've handed out on the back of the program. The area in blue, the QR code and link, please use that throughout our conference today, because we'll do a bit of an interactive feedback and quiz with you, and you can use that on any device that you have available in the room today. The other link that you also have there is if you want to go onto the live feed, where on YouTube you'll also be able to see what we're doing, and the online participants specifically who have joined us on YouTube as well. Very welcome to them. You are welcome to pose questions as we go. We'll try to answer your questions, and as I said, it's interactive, so we want a discussion flowing. Please don't be shy to ask questions or to make comments. That's part of the process today as well. And then in that being said, I would like us to start with the quiz that I've just spoken about. Okay, so we want to know who you are today and have a nice conversation and know who we are speaking to. I think that's very important. So the first question is really about who are you representing. And on your device you'll see the categories, and you can just answer one of those so that we can have, all of us can have an idea of who's in the room and who we really are today and why we're here. Let's see, a few of you have actually started answering already, so thank you for that. A few university participants, our international partners, of course, thank you. I see there's another partner. Who would that be? Are you willing to show us who you are? If you said other. Yes, there in the back. Where are you from?
So,
yes, thank you.
Hi everyone, Edwin from Chancellor International, Fund Manager at Stellenbosch.
Thank you. Yes, sure. Thanks.
I'm Iba Lapson from another stream of chat groups or this company of CBS.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Okay, there we have a private sector employer, industry network. Where's our public sector employers?
Okay.
Yes.
Muhammad Fuad Nordin from the City of Cape Town, local government. We represent the City of Cape Town in the education and training sector.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Alexander, you said someone there? Christian?
Sorry, the private sector employer. I'm Christian Schiss from Reserve Southern African German-owned company, subsidiary in Cape.
Great. Thank you very much. All right.
Patrick Martinez.
Hello, Patrick.
Local government, City of Cape Town.
Yes.
HR services.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, and then just in the second question, you can let us know in which sector or industry you're working. And I know a lot of us work in more than one at sometimes. So you can choose where and what. It's just to drill down a bit into the specific industry or sector that you are currently working in. And this will also be quite interesting to see who's in the room and what type of fields we are working in. There's the first one, higher education, of course. Manufacturing, sales and service. An NPO. work integrated learning, design, food science, HE, so that's also higher education I see there. Great. Some more coming in there. So I see we've got quite a few fields, which is quite interesting, and I think that's the purpose of today as well. To have input from different fields and different industries and different sectors that we all can speak together today to the purpose of our conference. A few more? Everyone ready? Yes. Great. Western Cape government has come up. That's fantastic. I think we can surely say that we've got a good representation of industries, government, university, which is really what we want today. Okay, thank you very much for that. Just go back to the presentation quickly. There we go. So, lastly from me, I would just like to touch upon our purpose of the conference so that we know what we're going to do. And, of course, what the outcomes of the end of the day will be for all of us. And if we really, agree with this, is this really what is going to happen and what we see will pan out at the end of the day. So really, the purpose, as you also see on the program that we've articulated there, is really to enhance employer awareness. So employer means everyone who employs a graduate. So whether that be your government, public sector, private sector, NPOs as we've seen, it doesn't matter. We all group everyone together as an employer because at the end of the day that's really what it's about. And it's to create awareness for these employers about implementing dual higher education in South Africa and how that would work. And then, of course, how that benefits both, well, not both, but all three factors, being the student, the employer, and the university. So the outcomes we're looking at are really about talent development, so the mechanisms and avenues that we can follow using dual higher education, and which is supported through a dual higher education model. And then, of course, cultivating those collaborative partnerships between these parties so that we can review our current workforce strategies as well, to develop our talent, get the right talent into our workplaces, and then, of course, the benefits that DHE brings to that, dual higher education brings to that, in terms of customized curriculums for fields, and then also looking at business and innovation growth within those fields. Then also looking at appropriate support for students, both in the university and workplace setting, because of the two learning places that is part of the dual higher education model. And then lastly is really for our networking opportunity that we have here today to speak to each other and looking to future opportunities and capacity building within DHE as we envisage it in South Africa. So that's my story. That's our purpose and outcomes. We are looking forward to spend the day with you and conversing with you and getting all of your input. So thank you very much for joining us. I would like to introduce our newly appointed CEO of CHEC, Cape Higher Education Consortium, Professor Eugene Kluter, who will be doing our opening address and also speaking to you from the context that we are doing this project in. So thank you very much, Professor Kluter.
Well, thank you very much, Esteban. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being here. I'm really looking forward to be talking to you for the next half an hour or so. And I want to be provocative in my presentation. I want us really to think about what do we mean by future-focused learning and teaching. Now, I will start with undergraduate teaching, and the question here that I want to ask is, what if we set aside all discussions of things as they were, as they are, and as they might become, and concentrate on what they ought to be? Now, this comes from a quote from DHEP in a book entitled The Future of Learning. Now, why this is important, I've been in the higher education sector for more than 30 years, and there are many things that I think we do wrong at universities. And I'll say the following. We often get students that graduate with a degree and then they don't know much. If you interview them and for an honors course, for instance, they cannot answer basic questions that they were supposed to know the answers of at the undergraduate level. In fact, I think many of them will not pass an exam if they had to rewrite that examination in the first or second year. Now, that is the problem of the system. It is not because our students are not clever, it's the value proposition which I think is wrong. So what is the value proposition for our students? It's for them it is to get 50%, and then they pass and they get their degree, and then they hope that they will in fact find a job. The value proposition for the professor is to have a good pass rate. So they focus on helping the students to get that 50%. But there's no learning that takes place in that process. Now, I ask the question, how do we change the value proposition, by the way? And I use a cell phone to demonstrate the principle of learning. Everyone in the room here has a cell phone, and I'm sure that you know how to use this. And who of you actually attended a workshop to get to know how to use the phone? I don't see any hands go up. You get the phone and you figure out how to use this. And you can be 3 years old or 2 years old and you know how to work this. And you can be 80 years old and you get a new phone and you will be able to use this. Why is this the case? You see, fundamentally, when you own something and when it has enough value, you don't need to be taught, you teach yourself. Now, that value proposition we need to change at universities. It is the biggest challenge that we have, even at school level, primary, secondary school, at universities, and every other place that we go. The value proposition is wrong. I've thought, that we should introduce a degree, or in South Africa, that we follow a route where no student can fail. So after 3 years, you get your degree, whatever you enrolled for. Everyone's happy. They get their degree, and the universities get their subsidy, and the professors get promoted. But you've got a different qualification in terms of the degree. Let's say you do a Bachelor of Science degree. So you get a Bachelor of Science A degree, a Bachelor of Science B degree, a Bachelor of Science C, all the way to a Bachelor of Science Z degree. Which means that if you have a Bachelor of Science Z degree, it basically says that you were at university for 3 years and you know zero. You will only get a job with a BSc A degree. It will change the value proposition for the students. So instead of the students not going to the lectures, they will be in the front of the door of their professors on a daily basis to figure out, how do I get this Bachelor of Science A degree? So the value proposition needs to change. And we need to talk about that, because if we want to make sure that we don't dummify clever people with the way that we teach them and assess them, we need to change the value proposition. I've often asked the question to many universities. In South Africa, the average lecture time is approximately 50 minutes, 40 or 50 minutes. And then you ask the question, why do you have a 40 or 50-minute lecture period? And very few people give me an academic reason. The good reason normally is where they say the 10 minutes is a good time for students to change from one lecture theatre to the other. That's the reason. Now, that's not a good reason. There's no academic reason. The academic reason should be debated. You ask about assessment. Life does not happen in 3-hour assessments. That's not the way that we learn things. It's an artificial situation. And I can go on to challenge basically the way that we educate people in South Africa. So we need to change that, and we need to discuss that. I would really like your views on how do we change that. Are we back online?
Just help me for a second. Sorry, Eugene.
There we are.
There we go.
Okay, so there we are. So we want to talk about what it ought to be. And the ought to be prompt for me is the value proposition. It's how do we instill learning and ownership with our learners. Jeanette Vos states that school, there are 4 myths of learning, and that is school, or you could even say university, is the best place to learn. Intelligence is fixed. Teaching produces learning, and we all learn in the same way. And I'm not going to go into detail there. These statements are pretty obvious, and we all know this. I've got a particular presentation on multiple intelligence, for instance, where I discuss the 10 different intelligences that we have, starting with knowledge, going on to understanding what we know, creativity, emotional intelligence, financial intelligence, and so forth. And I'm not going to go there, but we basically are all born with this immense intelligence. I would easily say that we are born with the same amount of intelligence as a Leonardo da Vinci or an Albert Einstein. And you might be sitting there saying to yourself, okay, so what went wrong? Why don't we live that intelligence? A lot of things go wrong. The expectations other people have of us. Our first year chemistry lecturer went into the class, pointed down the middle, and said to us, half of you are not going to be here again next year. And I was happy that I was not sitting in that half. And then he went to the other half and he said, and half of you are going to be here again next year. That is the wrong expectation to communicate to a first year student. What he should have said was get to know the people that are sitting in front of you, next to you, and behind you, because those are the future leaders, future professors, future architects, engineers, doctors. They're significant people. And by the way, chemistry is not such a difficult subject. You see, by communicating the positive expectation, you unlock some of the genius that is taken away from us even before we go to school, and then we go to school, which is a bit like prison. If you remember correctly, you wear a uniform, you walk in a straight line, you've got to sit still, and you have to keep quiet. That's not good for people that are clever. So we need to change that. So we know that if we want to learn anything fast and effectively, you have to see it, hear it, and feel it. This is where the dual higher education program that we will be talking about a lot today will make a big difference. Where students get the opportunity to learn, to be at university, but spend a good deal of their time working while they are learning. And there are many benefits of that, as you will see as we go on. So to learn it, we have to do it. And that's the purpose of the dual higher education program. The other challenge that we face at universities is that of people sitting in a classroom and being bored. They say since the brain cannot pay attention to everything, uninteresting, boring, or emotionally flat lessons simply will not be remembered. To concentrate for 50 minutes is a challenge for most people. I mean, you can just imagine you go to this concert, and there's a show going on, which is normally like an hour and a half, and they have a break so that you can continue to concentrate. Now, how can you as a lecturer present a show that lasts for 50 minutes that will entertain your students? It is not possible. So, and then some lecturers are bad representations of good textbooks. So one will really have to think about what do we do when we interact with our students. And I've got some ideas on that, and you will see as we go along. We also know that learning is most effective when it's fun. But often we don't want our students to have fun. So in our lectures, you must challenge yourself and say, how are you going to turn this lecture into something that is not boring and something that is fun? for the students. And that is an art. It takes a huge amount of thinking and planning to make sure that you entertain while the students are actually learning. I often play the weakest link. I just call 10 students up and I start asking them random questions, and they can be bailed out if they don't know the answer. Someone in the audience can put their hand up and bail them out. But the learning that takes place there is intense. They never forget the question and they never forget the answer. None of them, and everyone, in fact, is engaged in that learning process for that half an hour or 45 minutes. But the challenge is for us is to how do we make sure that our students don't get bored? And then, of course, then came the internet, which is a game changer. And we saw this during COVID, where we suddenly, all universities had to go online. And many of them actually did this seamlessly. The biggest challenge was to get enough data to the students and to get someone connected on a PC or a smartphone. But for the rest, we could do this virtually immediately. And this will continue to happen. I have no doubt that the lessons that we learned from the internet and from COVID is going to help us. So the generation we deal with, they grew up surrounded by digital media. For us, a lot of this stuff is still foreign, not for the young people that surround us. Here's an important statement. We say books are published at such a rapid rate that they make us exponentially more ignorant. If a person read a book a day, he or she would be neglecting 4,000 others published the same day. In other words, the books he or she didn't read would pile up 4,000 times faster than the books he or she did read. And his ignorance would grow 4,000 times faster than his or her knowledge. Now, have you heard about ChatGPT, I'm sure? And you have heard of Tome, T-O-M-E. Now, you can generate information at the speed of light, basically. This is not connected to the internet, otherwise I would have demonstrated to you the power of both of those, Tome or ChatGPT. But if you take Tome, for instance, and you ask it a question, like, what are the advantages of the dual higher education? And you type that in, it will within 15 seconds give you a 8-slide presentation on the topic with not only the text but also with nice pictures that go with the text. And you can ask Tome any question and it will do that. The other day I opened a conference on acid mine drainage and I warned the audience that and I know a little bit about acid mine drainage, I warned the audience that I was going to generate my presentation during my presentation. So I went on to Tome and I typed in acid mine drainage treatment and it presented all 8 slides that I could speak to. And with the knowledge that I have, I could actually expand a bit on some of the points which were in that slide. ChatGPT is amazing. You can ask it virtually anything and it will give you an answer. You can even ask it to write a report for you and it will give you an answer. Now here's the challenge for universities, and it's a big topic at the moment. What are you going to do if you would not know that the student actually used Tome to generate their presentation or to generate their seminar or their project? But we needn't fear that. And the reason that we needn't fear that is that the only thing that ChatGPT at this point gives us, or Tome, is information. It does not give us wisdom. So as we go forward, the key issue that is emerging from this information explosion is that there's far too much information at our disposal, and you can spend a whole day talking to Chat and asking Chat questions and educate yourself basically on anything that you want to be educated on. So here are 2 aspects. Firstly, it's simply trying to improve our methodology of seeking data and information. We have done that. The versions we have of ChatGPT now, there's already a new version out just 2 months after it was launched. And Tome, this is just one step beyond Google. It adds a huge amount of value to Google. And transforming that into knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, that is our job. ChatGPT and Tome and Google cannot do that. We have to do that. That is why you become a subject expert. The second is a more mechanical matter of fact. We need to learn how to filter the data so that we can get on with the task of understanding. So immediately we move on to the higher cognitive levels. of understanding, of knowledge, of creativity, and of synthesis. The first cognitive level is really where we just need the knowledge, or we just not the knowledge, we just need the information. And this is what ChatGPT does, and the others, Google and so on. It gives us the information, which is, by the way, the lowest cognitive level according to Bloom's taxonomy, but we need to move to the higher cognitive levels, and this will be the challenge. It will change the way we assess our students. Instead of finding out whether they can remember a lot of stuff, they can now get that stuff wherever they want, at any time, but we will need to find out, do they understand this? Can they synthesize the information? Can they be creative with the information? And to what extent can they come up with new insights using the information? So, while the information-based world is now moving exponentially, our organizational structures are still very linear, especially larger and older ones. This is the challenge that we have at universities. A university is a place where we're supposed to be agile and where we are supposed to be creative, but it is virtually impossible to change anything at a university. If you want to change the curriculum, if there's more than 50% change in the curriculum, it will take you 3 years to change that curriculum and get it approved by the Department of Higher Education and Training. By that time, you actually need a new curriculum already, at the rate that things are happening. So we need additional structures which run sort of alongside universities to change so that universities can eventually catch up with the new way of learning. And a good example of this is, of course, the Singularity University. And if you haven't heard of that, Google the Singularity University. It's amazing what they have done. But there are some key impacts of these exponentials, and the Singularity University is such an exponential university. I'll say more about that in a second. But there has been a demonetization of a lot of things in the world, which has changed the world. Skype, iTunes, Amazon, Airbnb, the Craigslist, Uber, and so on. Teams, Zoom, you can add it to that list there. You can now talk to anyone anywhere in the world, and it will cost you virtually nothing. It's a game changer, and we have not yet embraced the full extent of that development. If we look at the democratization, that's the availability of key technologies, applications to almost everybody. Smartphones become the platform to assess everything. Unlimited computing power, cheaper energy, artificial intelligence, unlimited competencies, cost-competitive resources, unlimited education, free or low cost, online universities, communication, smartphones, internet, WhatsApp, Skype, mobile phones, and so forth. So this is the change that we are facing at the moment. If we cannot adapt to this change, we will become irrelevant. We will have to embrace the change here. And the change is good, by the way. We need to educate 200 million young people in Africa in the next 15 years. 200 million. In South Africa, the total university cohort is 1 million. We've got 1 million students at university in South Africa. So you multiply that by 200, and you get an idea of the challenge. There is no way that we will be able to do this without technology. We will have to make use of technology to do this. So people anywhere will be able to take the best courses taught by great teachers. This is what Bill Gates already mentioned some time ago. And if you look at entrepreneurs, guess where entrepreneurs actually educate themselves? They do this on YouTube. The number one source for an entrepreneur to educate themselves is to go to YouTube and to find out about finances, etc., etc. Of course, now they can ask a ChatGPT and Toad, which is just the next level up. But this is a fact. If we look at the Singularity University, for instance, now they don't have any permanent staff, by the way, at the Singularity Universities. They make use of people from all over the world to lecture. I do lectures there from time to time, and it's quite interesting. I sit in my office while I present my lecture, and I have students that are having coffee at the one end of the world, and I have students sitting with a beer in the hand on the other end of the world. And they are all in the same lecture. And we have a fantastic discussion. But these are some of the people that they use. Dan Barry, he's a NASA astronaut. Neil Jacobson, a CEO. Then we have Daniel Kraft, stem cell biology in Stanford. So they source the people from the very best that they can find, from all over the world, to lecture in the Singularity University. And these are really incredible people, and you can go onto the list. They've got a whole list of all of the people that present lectures there. Their vision statement is, how will you positively affect 1 billion people in the next decade? How will you positively affect 1 million people in the next decade? And they've got topics on poverty, energy, education, global health, security, water, food, environment. All of these are in line also with what is called the Sustainable Development Goals as a matter of interest. And they are changing the way that people are being educated. It's asynchronous. You do it in your own time, whenever you want. It's for free. And when you pass all the courses and you want the certificate, then basically you pay a fee. And this is how they make their money. If you don't want the certificate, if you just want the courses to be passed, that's fine. Because remember, in this particular case, you own the learning. There's no other reason. This has been the success, by the way, of COVID. The students that actually studied during COVID and attended the online lectures, either in real time or asynchronously, they were there because they wanted to actually learn. And this is why the success rate went up during the COVID period at universities. So we will have to think differently about how we actually go ahead. We also find all of these portals now. So if you want a topic and you want to learn about any particular topic, you can in fact go onto a portal. It's a bit like ChatGPT, and this portal will take you to all the resources, the online resources in a particular field. I'm busy writing a review at the moment on nanotechnology, the applications of nanotechnology in water. It took me about half an hour to get the 100 publications for the past 5 years. So these are all recent publications. Then I put this into a word cloud. You saw word cloud this morning. So I took those 100 publications, I put them into word cloud, and I had my index for my review, because it indicated to me what are the words that are actually really important in these 100 papers. And what I'm busy doing now is I'm populating my index. So I've got the content, the table of content is there. All I now have to do is I actually now just have to populate that, and I've got my review article. So this will be the quickest review article that I've ever written in my life. It will take me about 2 days to write a proper review article with recent information. If I use Chat, for instance, as ChatGPT as my co-author, I could do it in a shorter time. But there are many journals that don't allow this yet. As a matter of interest, there are journals that allow you to actually list ChatGPT as a co-author of your publication. So it's just amazing. So with those few words, I hope I've given you something to think about at the moment, to think about how will we learn in future, what is the best way of learning, the value of learning while you are working in a dual higher education program, and then how do we transfer this value and ownership to the learner so that they in fact can learn something while they are at university. I think also that the tacit knowledge that universities get, this is where the Singularity University falls short. The tacit knowledge, the knowledge that students actually get outside of the classroom, is as important as the knowledge that they gain inside of the classroom. Those interactions that they have, the relationships that they build, etc., etc. And I think this is why universities have existed for more than 800 years, because of the tacit knowledge, not because of the in-class experience, but because of the other experience that goes with that when you are on a campus. Thank you very much for your attention, and I will gladly take some questions. Thank you. Yes, please, sir.
Just going to ask you, how do you spell the other thing that you mentioned, ChatGPT and what?
Tome.
T-O-M-E.
T-O-M-E. Okay. Yes.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jessie van Dijk. I'm from the Department of Food Science and Technology, CPUT. Thank you, Eugene. That was, I wish I could write it down verbatim to go and share with my staff. My question to you is around the absolute flood of knowledge that you referred to, and the example that you gave of, if you read one book, you're behind by 4,000 almost on a daily basis. So do you think that using chatbot and or term would go a long way towards avoiding us and our students becoming progressively more ignorant every day?
Yeah, no,
That's
absolutely.
the best way.
I am totally for ChatGPT and totally for Tome, believe me. Because it does, and you must just use it to see the value of that. It really, and you could use this in class, by the way. You could have this. It's a fantastic tool, educational tool, where you can actually use that in real time in a classroom to say, okay, we want to discuss antibiotic resistance today. And you put it in there, and you have your presentation. And now you say, well, let's go to the higher cognitive levels. What are the implications for the development of antibiotics, etc., etc.? So I really think it's a tool that we must use.
So in other words, the point that you also made, that if one should focus on the recall, in other words, well, we talk about Bloom's taxonomy
Yep.
still. So if one should talk about the define and the recall, then chatbot will be dangerous. But if one moves to the higher level, highest cognitive levels, then it would actually be a handy tool.
No, absolutely. And there is a good reason why you need knowledge at hand. And I'll give one example. Imagine you are undergoing open heart surgery, and the surgeon has to use ChatGPT to find out what the next step is. Then you're in trouble. Or you're in an aeroplane, and the aeroplane is on the runway, 300 kilometers an hour, and the pilot is on his iPad trying to Google what the next step is. So that knowledge that is available immediately, we must not think that it is not important. It is extremely important. But you can, it also becomes fun. That's the other part I like about Tome and ChatGPT. So you delve deeper and deeper, and you wonder about this, and you put it in there. It's like an interactive encyclopedia. It's perhaps the best way to describe Chat and Tome. It's like an interactive encyclopedia. And encyclopedias are useful, and so is Google. But this goes one or two steps beyond Google. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for, at some point in your presentation, I wanted you to stop so that I can shout amen about a number of things that you shared. I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, so my name is Mtu Vongo. I am from the University of Johannesburg. I'm listening to you and I'm thinking that there has to be a shift in terms of how the whole education story is seen, especially from the lecturer's point of view, that for instance, this ChatGPT is a huge debate at the moment in our university, and is receiving quite a resistance from academics, because they think, here there's another way of kids to cheat. But you said something that's very valuable about knowledge and information versus wisdom. As an adult learner, I was introduced to Quillbot last year by my classmates who were fresh from honors. I'm doing a master's in leadership. So the last time I was a student was in 2006. And all of a sudden I'm told about Quillbot that can paraphrase things for you. So when I use this tool, I would copy from my assignment or from whatever source I got this, paste it on them, and then they can paraphrase it. Then I realized without them talking to me about it, I would realize that I don't like the way this thing puts this word. I still want to maintain it. And I think that's the part of the wisdom.
Yeah.
that I'm not going to take it as it is. If I want to maintain the way I want to express it, I can still do that.
Yeah.
But it also requires that from the teaching point of view, that the kind of teaching and the engagement between the lecturer and the student is up to that level, that learners or students, as much as this is there at the click of a button or whatever, the information is there, but you still need something else to make a decision whether this is relevant to what you want to use this for. And it's so powerful. I also felt like I could take your talk and just dump it in some big committee meetings. Thank you very much for that.
No, thanks. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's talking about student interactions. I was invited to Free State University about 2 weeks ago as a mentor to 20 of their young academics. And what they did was, during the day, they did a presentation of their research topics. So while they were talking, I just used Tome, and I would type in the title of their research topic. So when they had completed their presentation, I could ask questions. The one young lecturer came to me during their break in the afternoon. She said, "Professor Klute, is there any topic in this world that you don't know a lot about?" And then I told her what I was doing. I was using Tome to improve the interaction that I could have with them on subjects that I had very little knowledge about. And this is exactly the kind of interaction that you will have to do with your students. To say, well, let's generate the information. You can do it online, and they say, okay, now we're going to discuss this. We're going to actually now go to the higher cognitive levels and discuss the information which has been generated for us. But the emphasis will change. We had a question over there at Antoinette, and then also in front. Yep.
I just have a comment. I was thinking the gentleman that spoke before me, I think what we are talking about is literally in teaching, flipping the classroom.
Yep.
You know, where the students become the teachers. And if they are smart enough to extract that information, then it means that the lecturer can actually just facilitate the growth of that knowledge into wisdom. And the word that came up in my head while you were talking is we need to eradicate the stumbling blocks for this change and this innovation.
Yeah.
Because our problem at the moment is we are functioning, and the same with our businesses. We are functioning in systems that keeps dragging us back, you know, into the traditional. And I just also want to make a comment about business. I think in terms of the qualifications that they are looking for, perhaps we got stuck in the paper that the person can present, and we forget to look at what are the abilities of this person in your business. What value proposition can this person bring to your business, though they might not have the kind of qualification that you want. And this is why we are also want to almost look at the, revolutionizing the whole thing of qualifications and not just sticking to B degrees and master's degrees and doctoral degrees and matric and, etc. So I think we must really, in our minds, we must really look at what are those stumbling blocks that are preventing us to get there and address them. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. I mean, in terms of the flip, long before even Google and Tome and ChatGPT, I would start off my lectures, first-year students often, many of them, 700 at a time, and introduce myself, and then I'll say, okay, give them a bit of a motivational speech, and then say next week or next lecture we will chat or we will discuss chapter 1 and 2, for argument's sake. So then I come into the next lecture and I say, okay, we're going to discuss chapter 1 and 2. Are there any questions? So normally there's no hand that goes up. And then I say, well, okay, so next lecture we discuss chapter 3 and 4, class is over, and I go. And then I come the next time and I say, well, this is the work, are there any questions? I promise you, all the hands go up. Because then I've changed the value proposition and the learning is now happening with them and not with me. And it's that kind of approach, I think, that changes, that is a game changer. And it's such a fun thing to do. I mean, and I give them the responsibility. But it's collective learning, and we will be facilitators. We, as lecturers, we will not be the prime source of information. We haven't been for a long time, actually. But some people still think the sage of the stage is the way to go. Professor.
Yeah, thanks, Eugene, for this analysis. I agree very much with it. So my name is Josef Gochermann. I'm from Germany. I'm at the Institute of Dual Study Programs at the University of Applied Science in Osnabrück. And I just want to add two aspects from my own experience, which part of the activities here now in the dual study programs. I hope so. So first, in my lectures, students are laughing. And not all the time, but of course, but mostly they have fun. And when I met them 2 or 3 years after they had made the degrees, they remember all the things they laughed about. Yeah, the stories, I'm telling their stories about the real world outside, and that was what they are remembering. And then they remember the facts behind. So it's very, very true what you analyzed. You talked about the value proposition and about the different intelligence. And perhaps you can comment one experience we did when we make the research on the benefits of dual study programs and the structure and so. And as we discussed, Antoinette, very often is, I saw a lack in an approach here in South Africa, which is the difference to the German approach in learning. So I know South Africa for 30 years or longer than 30 years now, and the currency in South Africa is jobs, 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 and over that it's skills, skills, skills. So you can read anything about skills since 30 years, and it didn't change. So my identification is that the universities and the schools are teaching knowledge and skills. Knowledge in the case of facts, and skills how to do it. And the idea is when they bring together knowledge and facts, then they create new jobs or do anything productive. My experience is different. In Germany, we are not teaching only knowledge and skills, but also competencies, especially problem-solving competencies. How to use this knowledge and the skills and to add it then on a real existing problem. So that's the basic approach also for dual study programs. Do you agree with that?
I cannot agree with you more. It is exactly about that. And they get, I remember in my second year, one of the biochemistry lecturers, one of our lecturers spoke about how to make soap, the process of saponification. I was so happy that after 18 months, I had actually learned something useful. I could now make soap. So that to come back to your point, it is exactly that. And I think this is what the advantage is of the other attributes. Creativity, for instance, as a skill. We don't teach that. People around the world don't actually even think. I mean, we look at this keyboard on this computer. It's not alphabetical. And the reason for that is a guy by the name of Christopher Scholes in 1876 designed this keyboard for the English language to slow down typing because the mechanical hammers on the old typewriters were jamming. Electricity was discovered, Microsoft came, Apple, and so on. We've still got just this same keyboard. It's an insult to human intelligence. I am absolutely sure of this. But no one asks this. If you want to switch off a computer that runs on Windows, you go to start to shut it down. How many things in this world do you start to shut down? Just a demonstration of how we don't teach people how to think. Emotional intelligence, I reckon, is the most important of all the intelligences because it is the intelligence driver or enabler. And to unlock the potential in other people, you must realize that we all have an emotional bank balance. And every time you interact with another person, you can either make a withdrawal or you can make a deposit. If you're constantly negative, hypercritical, disrespectful, unfriendly, if you don't acknowledge other people, you bankrupt them. And people like that, people like that, they're high maintenance. They tire you within like a minute. The opposite unlocks human potential, of which the most important is acknowledgement. We all have a very deep need to be acknowledged by our peers and other people. So the more we acknowledge people in a positive sense and where they deserve it, the more you unlock the potential. And I absolutely agree with the statement that we should relook at the qualifications framework. I'm passionate at the moment pursuing an objective where our students that are not allowed to continue at universities in South Africa, that they get an exit qualification like they would get a diploma or a certificate. At the moment they leave with nothing excepting with the view that they are failures for the rest of their life. Someone that's passed second year chemistry but keeps on failing Maths 1 and can't continue at university will be a better laboratory technician than someone with no chemistry. And there are other attributes in life that make you successful, not only your degree. In fact, your degree can become the most limiting factor when it comes to solving problems or career options or career changes, because you spend so much effort and money in qualifying yourself in a particular field. But I could speak a lot about that. It's a fantastic way of thinking if you pursue that line in terms of how do you unlock human potential by going to these 11 intelligences and unlocking those intelligences in people. Then the genius comes out in everyone. We're on time.
Yes.
Estienne,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the interaction. Much appreciated. Thank you.